Well, I don't meet the requirements to go live. However, I am feeling Omi and I am Nana Shawana to my new grandson Taiyang Jin, whose name means sun gold. I am creating a quilt for my grandson. I sew. I've sewn professionally in the past. I do wedding gowns, veils, outfits for performers. Those are some things that I've done in the past, commission pieces. So this is half of a quilt that my grandmother and her mother, so that would be my grandson's great great grandmother and great grandmother, started. This quilt is older than me, um, and I'm a spry over 50-year-old. Um, and this was something my mom had tucked away in the bottom of our linen closet and was never used. And so um, my grandmother lived on a farm in Louisiana with my grandfather where they raised 13 children. I am the daughter of May Omi, thus my channel Feeling Omi. When my mother passed away, I created that brand Feeling Omi, partially because I love yoga and the Om serenity that it brings to me, and then it was just really cool that my mother's name fell in line with that serendipity. So this is half of a quilt. I cut it in half. I have the other half in the closet back there. This is half of a quilt that my grandmother and my great grandmother began. So this would be my grandson's great great grandmother and yeah, and great grandmother, right? They started this. So they didn't finish it. I have other quilts that they did finish. And since he is my first grandson, you see it's very clean. It's been washed several times. It has some water damage to it. And I think that's from me moving. I don't think that was something my grandmother put on there, or it might be a, no, that's not water damage. It might be a burn from an iron. Anyway, it's very clean. It's been washed a couple times. And I just made a generic pattern, and I'll show you the pieces of fabric that I have. We call him Little Dragon. So I have some children's dragon print fabric that I'm going to be using. This particular print will be used to make patches or accent pieces to the quilt. I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces, so there'll be four pieces about blocks about this size. Okay, haven't measured these yet. One thing you should know, I sew. I've been sewing for so long that I sew kind of like I cook. I can visualize things and just create them from there. I've made patterns. I've gone to fashion design school to accent or to add on to my skills that I innately have from my mother being very avid sewer seamstress. She used to make our clothes when we were little, and so I learned from watching her. And now I sew. I can pretty much sew and measure things from the top of my head and create a piece. So I haven't measured these, but it looks like it's about maybe 18 by 18 square. Let's measure just to see if that's true. I have my square that I actually got this when I was in fashion design school. So I think these are inches on this side, and that's 14. So let's see if this is 18 by 18. That's what I'm guessing. And I'm right. It is 18 by 18. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is what I mean by I'm pretty accurate, right? It's just a little bit over 18 by 18. So with the seam allowance, I would say it'd be about 18 by 18. So these are going to be accent pieces to the main print, which is this. This is so adorable. I had to special order this at Joann's Fabrics, and it took a little while to get in, but it finally came in. And these are just little baby dragons and castles in different primary colors. Just adorable. So we call him Little Dragon. He's the sweetest little baby. So this will be the main print, and then there will be 4 big blocks to the quilt, big block pieces, okay, patches. In quilts, I think they call them blocks. This is actually the first quilt I've ever done. I've been wanting to do a quilt since I was a little girl. That's the reason why I have these quilts from when my mom passed away. I inherited those quilts. I made sure that I got those quilts because I'm the only one of my sisters or brothers that sews. So I made sure that I got those quilts when my mom passed away. So I made a little pattern so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to also write his name on the quilt or embed his name into the quilt. Quilt his name into the quilt, okay? His name will be quilted into the quilt. His name is Taiyang Jin, which means sunshine gold or sun gold. And we call him Tai. So the front of the quilt, if you can see this, will have his Tai, his first name. And the back of the quilt will have Jin, his middle name, which is Jin. It's backwards here, but yeah, Tai Jin. And let's see, and these are the patches that I was talking about. So there'll be 2 blocks of the BG stands for blue and gray. This is what I'm calling this, blue and gray. On either side, there'll be 2 large patches quilted in of the blue and gray. And then on the back side, it'll be the alternate corners of the quilt. And it's a long rectangular quilt. It was square. I cut it in half so that if I have another grandchild, I could use the other half to create another quilt. So those will be quilts for my first 2 born grandchildren. Hopefully I have more. We'll see. So this is what the quilt will look like. So the instructions that I wrote out to myself last night so I wouldn't forget that this is what I wanted to do was to cut pieces of the white fabric the long way, the same length of the gray and blue print. So lengthwise, long way. What I'm doing is let's see. Let's get to the top of this. So this is the wide way, this is the long way. Or the bias. This is the bias of your fabric where you see where they write, you know, the name of the print, where it's made sometimes, the little color block section, these little things. Parts that'll be lost inside your seam, you won't see that when you sew, but this is called the bias. So I'm cutting this against the bias. This would be with the bias. The long way is the bias. So I'm going to be cutting these to match the same width as this, and it worked out wonderfully well. Let's see. I think this is, yeah, here we go. So I'm matching these up. I'm putting the biases together. And I'm going to make 4 blocks of the white fabric also, so that they can go in the opposite corners of the blue and gray fabric. So I'm lining those up, and I'm going to cut the white, I don't know if you can see that at the bottom, the same length as the gray and black. So I'm just going to cut along here. All right, I'm going to lay that out on the table and use this blue and gray as a measurement to where I need to cut the white fabric. Now, you may not be as visually capable of measuring things as I am, so you may need to measure, and I do recommend that if you are new at sewing, or if you don't work with crafts a lot, okay? So you would want to measure that. So whatever the length of the blue and gray is what I'm going to cut one piece of the white out of the rest of that long fabric. This is, the white fabric is 3 yards. I purchased 3 yards. I think the blue is 1.5 yards. I think that's how much I ordered of that. So the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now and cutting the white the same length of the blue and gray is so that I can make these blocks of the quilt white. Okay, this is, middle part is also going to be white, but these are going to be white. And I'm doing that because I want it to look somewhat like a patch quilt, right? I'm not as patient. I won't say I'm not as talented, because if I had the patience to, I'm sure I could sit down and create a patch quilt with many different patches. Okay, so I'm just doing a block patch quilt. These are big blocks, and it's going to look like a patch quilt. So it has that grandmother flavor to it, but it's a little bit more contemporary, right, for us new age grandmothers. So this is a simple quilt that shows you put some care into it and shows that you have some skills behind the care that you put into it, okay? And then I'm going to create with the white fabric, the fabric that it goes here and here and in the center, I'm going to create a border around it. And that'll be a nice contrast because it'll be the same colors as this, but the way that it's cut and the way that it's sewn, the pattern won't be predictable. So it'll give it a variation in the way that the pattern looks all around the border, which will be a nice little accent. And I might add some little tassels at the end just to be cute. Maybe. Or maybe I'll add some tassels in here somewhere where his name is, or you know, those little yarn crosses that you see at the ends of seams in some blankets. I might do something like that, which would be really cute too. So we'll see. Okay, so now I'm just going over, I'm not going to finish this today, but I do want to come back on with you guys and finish it, and upload these videos so that you guys can, you know, see what I'm doing. I wish I could go live. I had 5,000 followers on Facebook before that was popular, and decided to get rid of half of them, and now I'm finding that you have to have at least 5,000 followers to go live on YouTube. That's quite all right. So these are the prints that I'm going to create his name out of. Okay, they're different colors. So his Taiyang will be created from these various colors, bright colors that match the colors some of the colors in the quilt, some of them not. So that'll be a nice little contrast too, because there's no purple in the color scheme here. But I have purple here. There is some blue, there is some red, and there is some yellow, and there is some green. So purple is the only different color that will stand out, and that's the color of royalty, right? So these will be, I need to design a pattern for the letters in his name. I've even thought about just cutting out the letters in his name in these colors, not creating a finished edge, leaving it unfinished, so that when it washes, it kind of ravels around the edges of his name, which would be nice, which is what I think I'm going to end up doing. It'll make it a little bit easier, and it'll give it that more cozy, fuzzy, warm, like feeling, a look to it, appeal to it. So it's not so structured. It has some texture, fuzzy texture to it. So that's what I think I'm going to do with that. So the edges will be kind of frayed after it's been washed a few times. You know, things tend to fray. I think it's like this. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm going to have probably a ½ inch of that little fray. Okay. Kind of like when you cut jeans and you don't sew them at the bottom, they start to fray. I also have some of this Asian fabric. I wish I had it in a darker blue, because this is like a Tiffany teal blue. It doesn't look like that in the video. It looks darker. But this blue is not as dark as there. Now you can see. So this is a blue. And you can see that that's like it's kind of like a Tiffany blue. But I really like this because it's Asian print. It's the only really Asian print that I have for sewing with. So what I might do is make a patch with this and put my name on it somewhere in the corner for him. Or make a heart to go over the I in his name. Maybe if I decide to use a lowercase I can make a heart with one of these prints in this fabric. Or I may just make a heart and put it on there just for that added grandma loves you kind of touch. We'll see. So that is what I am going to share with you today. And I'm going to get actually what I think I'll do is let's cut the blocks today. That way we're one step closer to getting this accomplished. I waited for like almost 2 months for that special order fabric to come in, and that was a little challenging. So we're going to cut these blocks. Okay, we're going to cut these blocks. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to cut 8 blocks. We'll get 4 out of the blue and gray, and after I cut the white, what I was showing you how I'm going to cut the white the same length of the blue and gray, then I'll get 4 more from the blue and white, or from the white. So, okay. So let's do that. That's something we can do right now. All right, we're going to move this out of the way. And we're going to actually get these lined up properly so that they actually are the same. Don't fret if you're not new at sewing. The standard width of fabric is usually all the same. So any printed fabric that you buy, they're all going to be the same width. It's the length that you're paying for when you buy yardage. So don't worry about yours not doing this. If you buy different fabric than me, don't freak out about that, okay? It'll be the same width. All you have to do is cut the length the same that you want. So if you decide you want to do exactly what I'm doing and use two different prints, then you can do that. Now, what you may not be able to do, like what I did, is match up the size of your blocks that you want. You might not be able to match them up evenly. I can visually do that pretty well. So I encourage you to actually measure. Actually measure. Okay. So. And then what also helps is if you pin stuff, which is what I think I'm going to do here, just to be on the safe side, to make everything come out the way that I want it to. Okay, so I'm going to start pinning this. And that means I'm just going to take these edges here, line them up evenly, and pin them in spots, different spots, okay? I got my pins here. It shouldn't take a whole lot to do this. I prefer using the pins with the balls on the end. Sewing supplies are so expensive now. Used to be able to buy a thing of pins for 99 cents, 79 cents. Now they're like $5.99. So I'm just lining this up and pinning it down so that I can cut the blocks. This is so exciting. I'm so happy that I have a grandchild and that I can